Good afternoon.
Devastating.
It is lovely to see everyone here today, and thank you so much for coming. Yeah. And I am humbled and blessed to be able to be the Ending Homelessness Coordinator for the Northern California Conference. Yay. It's been a privilege to be a part of the work that God is having us all do collectively. And today we're going to talk about a little bit some of that work that we've been doing over the last couple years. Mark is going to introduce a little bit more about what this initiative is and some of the pieces that have been put in place prior to today. So thank you so much for coming, and we're just really grateful to have you here.
Yes, indeed. Also want to welcome you. My name is Mark Woodson. I serve as the president of the Northern California Conference. The Northern California Conference, if you don't know, is made up of churches and schools and ministries. Our territory covers the northern part of the state, all the way from the Bay Area all the way to the Oregon border. We have about 167 congregations and 31 schools. And 40,000 members. But I'm really excited and want to welcome you here today because of this initiative. This is an exciting time that we are in because we as a conference have dedicated ourselves to significantly reducing homelessness in our territory where we're present. And that's a big task. We started this journey, I like to say this movement, from 2022 when we had our constituency meeting. And at that constituency meeting, I get up to make a speech, really a plea, to say there are times when the people of God have to do big things for God because we serve a big God, right? And I believe those who serve a big God should do big things for God. And because we have all the resource that we need, and that is God. And so we as followers of Jesus need to be in this space because this is a very critical thing. And we're talking about the difference between life and death, really, when it comes to homelessness. We're talking about the difference between life and death. And the people of God who are people of life and light need to be in that space. So we are here today. This is our second annual summit. The first one we had was in Roseville. This is our second one. And this is where we get to focus on what we're doing around the conference, what we're wanting to do. And hopefully you will be inspired. You will certainly be informed with all of the things that are happening. So we're really, really glad that you're here. I mean, I see many of your faces. I know most of you that are here, but some of you I do not. And we just want to thank you for being here this afternoon and for what God is going to be doing. And we don't have this on the schedule here, but let's start with prayer. Would you bow your heads with me? Father, we want to thank you for the fact that you are a loving God and we are your people and you have made us in your image. And because we are made in your image to be image bearers, we have an opportunity to share who you are, to share your love with others who also bear your image. And so we ask for your spirit to be among us in this program today. We ask that you will guide us, you will direct us, and we will not only learn much, but we will be inspired to continue to be your hands, to continue to be your feet, to your voice, to continue to represent you, and to make a difference in this world that you have brought us into. So thank you. We're excited for all of those who are going to be participating today. We ask for your grace in Christ's name. Amen.
today's going to be just a little bit different than we have in some other spaces. We're going to be having some transition points. So I just wanted to alert you to that there will be times where we have to put some furniture up here on the stage and move few pieces around. And then at the end, we are going to be having an interactive game where we'll be breaking up into groups. So there will be some movement throughout this process after we sit and listen to some presentations as well. But I also wanted to take this time to welcome our online viewers, because I know I didn't get a chance to welcome them at the beginning. So thank you so much if you're joining us in the virtual space as well. We're glad you could be here today. We're going to bring up Pastor Robert Kurtz from our St. Helena Church, and he is going to discuss with us the theological and philosophical perspective as to why we're addressing homelessness. And this is something that he has helped us craft and put together at our Council on Homelessness. So thank you so much, Pastor Robert.
Thank you, Joelle. Thank you, Dr. Woodson. You know, I can assume that most of us here today are already among those that have this particular outreach on our hearts. To come out and spend these hours together, we're probably already the choir, and so don't think I only preach to the choir. But we're also going to return to our communities, and we're going to find in our Adventist family that there are many people who we're blessed with who are particularly concerned, and we're very fortunate for this, to always be guarding our identity and our mission. And every time somebody has a great idea, and there are thousands of great ideas, we have the blessing of people who are going to vet those ideas and make sure that they pass through the filter of, is this really what we're here for? And so that's what this is really about. And this is not a justification. We really went to the drawing board and we spent weeks, actually months, to try to examine how and whether this outreach really affects our mission and fits with what we've been called for in these times. The theological and philosophical perspective, we hope, is really honestly representative of our identity and of the gifts and calling that we have as Seventh-day Adventists. Let's read through first the statement that was boiled way down, because when I kind of took everybody's input, the first thing we created was really a white paper. And people looked at that, and that was just mostly frightening, wasn't it? And then, hey, can you refine this down? Because, you know, we're not going to actually spend weeks having a course on this. And then working with Dr. Woodson and with others on our team, we've boiled this down to what we believe you can carry away, and you can share this with the people in your home churches, and not just in our conference, because we hope this will become infectious in our denomination. California and Northern California is not the only place where this is timely. But I'm going to ask that we advance the slide to the first of two slides that we'll look at together. And let's just read them through, and then we'll just take a moment to reflect. Inspired by the teachings and ministry of Jesus Christ, who prioritized caring for the marginalized and vulnerable, the Seventh-day Adventist Church recognizes the intrinsic worth and dignity of every individual, including those experiencing homelessness. Thus, working to help end homelessness aligns with the core values of compassion, service, and social justice embedded in Adventist theology. By actively engaging in efforts to reduce the effects of homelessness within our communities, the church demonstrates its commitment to fulfilling the biblical mandate to love one's neighbor as oneself. This involves not only providing immediate material assistance, such as food, shelter, and clothing, but also advocating for systemic change to address the root causes of homelessness, including poverty and the lack of affordable housing. Let's go to the second slide. Moreover, helping to mitigate homelessness allows the church to embody its mission of holistic ministry, addressing not only the physical needs of individuals, but also their spiritual and emotional well-being. Christ met people's real needs, and only his method will bring true success in gospel ministry. Through outreach programs, counseling services, and community partnerships, the church also can offer holistic support to individuals experiencing homelessness, helping them to regain stability and dignity. In the Northern California Conference territory, where homelessness may be particularly prevalent, we have a unique opportunity to make a significant impact on the lives of those in need. By mobilizing its resources, volunteers, schools, congregations, and other ministries, the conference can serve as a beacon of hope and compassion in its communities, reflecting God's love to all people, regardless of their social or economic status. When I read these words, I feel something deeply Adventist. We are a people, the people, who have always believed that faith touches the whole person, body, mind, and spirit. And that's why we've built hospitals and schools and community clinics long before that was fashionable. We have always believed that people matter because Jesus said they matter. And because sin has further so changed our world, even really recently, right now, homelessness is one of the clearest tests of whether we still believe that or not. The Jesus we Adventists follow, the Jesus of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the Jesus made so real in our Desire of Ages and Thoughts from the Mount of Blessing, never separated spiritual life from human need. Jesus fed those people to whom he preached. He restored dignity before he offered instruction. He looked into a person before he saw their circumstances. James, echoing his older brother, said, "If someone lacks daily food, and we tell them, 'Be warmed and filled,' but we don't give them what they need for the body, what good is that?" That's from James 2, verses 15 and 16. That is Scripture pressing us kindly but firmly into faith that acts. Ellen White sharpened this with unmistakable clarity. Christ's method alone will give true success in reaching the people. Ministry of Healing, page 143. And his method was simple. See people, meet needs, restore dignity, build trust, and then invite them into hope. That's the theological foundation of our entire initiative to end homelessness. And here's the edge. It's not enough for us to care about homelessness as a problem. Jesus calls us to care about it as people. People we pass every day, people made in God's image. That means the work is bigger than handing out food, although, of course, that matters. It means working with courage on the root causes: housing, poverty, mental health, access to care. Because biblically, compassion that never grows into caring action for those who need us most is just sentiment. An action that never flows from compassion just becomes ideology. Jesus held both together. Now, uniquely, in the Northern California Conference, we have a stewardship opportunity that not every region has yet. We have hospitals, schools, skilled members, business leaders, congregations, and community partners who already trust us. All of that, every resource, every relationship is part of what God has placed in our hands. The question is, what will we do with what we've been given? Jesus' parables of stewardship always return to this point. The blessings entrusted to us are meant to bless others through us. So when we talk about mobilizing Adventist resources to reduce homelessness, we are not stepping outside the gospel or our special end time message. We are stepping directly into the center of both. Because the gospel is not only about saving souls for the future. The gospel and our mission are about restoring lives today. When Adventists love boldly, serve generously, and advocate courageously, people recognize the heart of Jesus in us. Nothing will ever be more evangelistic than that. My prayer is that this initiative becomes not just a program, but a way of seeing, of walking through our communities with the eyes and compassion of Christ, the courage of the prophets, and the stewardship of a people who know they've been blessed to be a blessing. If we do that, this conference, every church in our area, every believer will shine as a beacon of hope and dignity, a living testimony that God's love is real and that His people still take their Jesus at His word.
That was a great sermon. Thank you very much for that message, Pastor Dr. Kurtz. We have a council on homelessness that has now been in existence for about 2 years. And we just quickly, I think there's a slide that has all of the names of all of the members that are on that council. And I'm just going to ask for all those who are here, part of our council, if you would stand. All of members of the council are here. Wonderful, wonderful. Glad you're here. Oh, there's Sarah. Okay, hi, Sarah. Good, thank you. Yeah. And let me just tell you a little bit about what this council does. What this council does, since we started our initiative to significantly reduce homelessness in our territory, this council serves as the guiding advisory to help us reach our goals and to reach to take care of this initiative. In order to be on this council, you should know that these individuals had to actually apply, except for the ex-official members' names that you see there. These individuals applied, and it's a 2-year term that they are on, and representing different facets, different expertise. We have pastors on there, educators on there, individuals that work in our in our community, individuals who work with housing, individuals who have a lived experience in homelessness. So a variety of individuals there, also in the legal area, as well as mental health. So all of those individuals are there to help us guide this initiative. And we'll talk a little bit about our goal in just a minute. But before we do that, I think we've got a couple of videos that we want you to see to put all of this in perspective.
In a community that has solved homelessness, a world where when an emergency arises, a person can get the support they need to remain in housing. And if they ever lose their home, they are moved into housing quickly by a system that knows them and what they need. Homelessness is rare, brief when it happens, and never becomes a way of life. The truth is, we don't have to just imagine it. In the Gulf Coast region of Mississippi, any veteran who becomes homeless is connected to housing within 30 days of identification. No one's left behind. And they aren't the only ones. Across the country, communities in Built for Zero are proving that homelessness is solvable. They do it by shifting their methodology and their mindset. First, they build a single team that is accountable for ending homelessness across the community. Who's responsible for ending homelessness in your community? The truth is, many stakeholders hold a piece of the solution, but no one has their eye on how the pieces fit together. In Built for Zero communities, everyone who serves the population works together to align their collective efforts behind a shared goal. Second, they commit to a shared aim of ending homelessness. Often, success for those working on homelessness is defined by how their individual programs perform. Built for Zero communities measure progress by whether they are collectively driving down the number of people experiencing homelessness. Their goal is to reach functional zero, a dynamic milestone that ensures homelessness stays rare and brief. Are fewer people experiencing homelessness than can be routinely housed? Once they reach functional zero for veterans or people experiencing chronic homelessness, they work to sustain it and scale that learning to the next population, until their systems are built to end homelessness for all. Third, they know everyone experiencing homelessness by name and in real time. You can't solve a problem that you can't see, and homelessness is a dynamic problem that is constantly changing. But it's often tracked using an annual anonymous street count, which is just a snapshot. To end homelessness, a community needs a video. Built for Zero communities maintain by-name data on who's experiencing homelessness in real time. They understand not only every individual's needs, but the dynamics of the population as a whole. They know who is entering homelessness, who is actively experiencing it, and who is exiting it. That way, they can target where systems can be improved, test new ideas, and track whether their efforts are actually driving numbers down. Finally, they make data-driven targeted investments. Expanding housing resources is crucial, but many cities have dramatically done so without making a dent in homelessness. The reason? They never fix the housing system. Real-time data enables communities to secure and target housing resources to drive the greatest possible reductions in homelessness. Homelessness is a big and complex problem, but it's not too big or complex to be solved. While it affects those who experience it in the deepest way, it affects less than 1% of the population. Communities can build systems that continually eliminate it and ensure everyone has a place to call home and live with dignity. We can take steps together toward a future where homelessness being rare and brief is the norm, not the exception. Is your community a part of it?
I've never been to a community that wasn't full of people working really hard to help folks out of homelessness.
Can you imagine what solving homelessness would look like in your community? How would you know if your city was making or sustaining progress? Solving homelessness is complex and only possible if everyone is working together toward a shared reality. That's why defining the goal and how to measure it is the first step. But getting clear on what it looks like to end homelessness is also a challenge. People, politicians, and practitioners define it differently every day. Ending homelessness isn't about making the problem less visible. It isn't a one-time achievement. It isn't an aspirational but unachievable feat. It is the hard work of creating a new reality, a more equitable one where homelessness remains rare and brief. Across the country, communities in the Built for Zero movement are solving homelessness for specific populations with the aim of ending it for all people. They use functional zero as a measure of whether they're achieving these goals. There are 4 important components of what it means to achieve functional zero. Functional zero means homelessness across a population is rare, and measurably so. In this state, fewer people are experiencing homelessness than are routinely accessing safe and stable permanent housing in a month. In other words, the number of people experiencing homelessness at any given time is never exceeding the community's capacity to ensure positive exits. Functional zero also means cities and counties are operating off of a full accounting of homelessness at all times by maintaining quality, real-time, comprehensive data on who is experiencing it. By achieving this milestone, the community is working toward equitable systems, starting with a focus on race and ethnicity. Any system that is not designed to identify and respond to disparities risks perpetuating them. Finally, all of these achievements are sustained over time, even as local conditions change. Communities reach functional zero once, and they must keep reaching it over and over again as they work toward an end to homelessness for all. Countless forces, like an economic crisis, a natural disaster, or a pandemic, can increase the likelihood of housing crises. But by achieving functional zero, communities are developing resilient systems that consistently respond and reduce homelessness towards zero. Achieving functional zero is a critical step toward an equitable future where homelessness is never inevitable, inescapable, or a way of life.
I came across the Built for Zero movement a few years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago now. And I love one of the things that says that gives me hope that you saw many times in this video, and that is homelessness is solvable. Homelessness is solvable. You'll run into all kinds of individuals and people that will tell you you're crazy for thinking that. But what I like and what we'll discuss today is ways that we're able to achieve that. I'm going to share with you just briefly what our goal is for our conference. It is what I like to call a big, holy, audacious goal. And I think it's going to be up on the screen here with that slide. And there's some words in here that I won't take the time to unpack because the videos were to help you kind of understand some of the definition. But this is the goal that we think about and we talk about every time that we meet as a council on homelessness. This is what is top of mind when Joelle is working with our different task force groups and working across this conference. This is the goal that we have in mind. And this goal is to achieve and maintain functional zero for at least one population group. What is a population group? It could be those who are experiencing chronic homelessness, veterans, adults with children, youth, etc. At least one population group per county or area where the Adventist Church is present in the Northern California Conference territory by the year 2032. So now that's just about 7 years from now. Build for Zero is present, this movement that you've just heard about, it's present in 6 of our Northern California Conference counties, and that's Contra Costa County, Marin County, Nevada County, Sacramento, Sonoma, and Placer. In one of those counties already, we have reached functional zero among veterans in Marin County. So we are one step closer to reaching our goal. But this goal is doable. You're going to hear more about it. Part of that has been our task forces are helping us with this. But this is what we keep in mind. This is our big, holy, audacious goal. This is how we are trying to our best to address it here in this territory. So by God's grace, we are going to make this a reality.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Stefan Heisler, and I am one of the members on the Council on Homelessness, representing Sacramento. While my day job, though, I am the housing manager for the city of Rancho Cordova, where my focus is on building housing. So I want to thank you, Antioch Church, for hosting this summit this afternoon. And I couldn't help but notice some of the opportunities that you have as I was driving in. And I'd love to have a conversation with you afterwards. And I know there's some folks in the room today, too, who also are very capable to have that conversation with you as well. And one of those is our distinguished speaker, who I am introducing. It's my great pleasure to introduce Travis Sandifer. He's the Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer at Volunteers of America. He has an impressive background in a number of areas around business, housing, and development. His work has included being the country director of Zambia for Adventist Health International. He also owns a small cafe in Reno, Nevada, called the Pangolin Cafe. And I know it's a long drive from Antioch, but if you ever find yourself in Reno, I highly recommend that you need to stop by Pangolin Cafe. And now at Volunteers of America, Travis has developed hundreds of attainable housing units and emergency shelter beds for the homeless in and around Reno, and has many more projects in the works. So if you want to know the ins and outs of getting people off the streets and into housing, Travis really knows what he's talking about. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Travis Sandifer.
Thank you, Stefan. Thank you for having me. And Dr. Woodson, amazing that the conference has tackled this. My experience in homelessness started when we moved to Reno, Nevada in 2018. My wife and I had this conversation. We had been sort of backbenchers much of our life, but we had come back from Zambia and we said, we've got to get involved in the community. So I struck out a number of times trying to volunteer with organizations, and then I stumbled upon the resource center at the homeless shelter there in Reno, operated by Volunteers of America. I knew nothing about VOA, but I showed up and they were going to have me do some filing in the back room. And then the next thing I know, I was at the front desk passing out mail to clients. So it's something we don't think about a lot, but if you are unhoused or you're living in a motel, you may not have a safe place to receive your mail. It's a big deal. So we had a couple hundred people coming through. It's like a full-blown post office. That experience changed my life. It turned my world upside down. I thought that I was an open-minded person, but I had some biases, some preconceived ideas in my mind. That American culture, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. We've all heard that. And then I saw the most amazing people. Stories of redemption. People who have achieved far more than I have ever achieved with far less. I got in deeper and deeper. I've got a few of my VOA colleagues here today, and I joined staff about 3 years ago. And while on staff, we lost our shelter director there at the Nevada Cares Campus. A handful of you, and I've seen some of you guys here, have been through the Nevada Cares Campus. It is one of the model shelters in the country of integrated care. It's a 549-bed shelter, plus 50 individual pods, plus an overflow during the winter. So the first day that I stepped in as interim director at that shelter, we were opening that overflow shelter for the first time. Everybody had promised me, it's not gonna fill up. We've got plenty of space. 3 days in winter, the shelter is full. We've set up another 26 cots, and then we've now got a warming center to make sure people can come in from the cold. Very snowy week that week. And I remember going down to check on our staff at around 11 p.m. And I walk in and I'm sort of observing this whole scene. And there's a man laying on the floor over on the side. And he's made a mess. He's intoxicated. Now, the Nevada Cares campus is a low barrier shelter, which for us means we don't drug test or have sobriety requirements to come in. You cannot use those substances while you are on site. But he came in, he's laying there on the floor, and before I can do anything, I watch two of our staff members, Heather and Michael. They make a beeline over to this guy, and they reach down to help him. And do you think that he's being super friendly in this moment? No. If you're looking for a thank you in this moment, it's not happening. He's shaking his cane, he's belligerent, but I watched them, they helped him stand up. And they started to walk him back to the restroom to help him get cleaned up. I can still hear Heather's voice in my mind. It plays on replay, sweetly talking to him. It's okay, John. We're going to get you cleaned up. Another staff member rushes over and they clean up the mess on the floor. No judgment, no questions asked. I'm a Seventh-day Adventist Christian. As I watched this, I saw Jesus at work. I saw him. If only all of us had that compassion and saw value in another human being who is not at their highest moment. It is not a transaction to make them feel good, but I saw these two people, and I hope that if I was in that situation, somebody would see that in me. We can go to the next slide. Next slide after this one. I ground myself, and I know for some of you guys this is going to be repetition, but I ground myself in this slide almost weekly. And my team is probably tired of hearing me talk about some of these things, but it's important. 187,000 people in the state of California did not have a permanent place to live in 2024. The scale of what we are talking about, the scale of this challenge is on a whole nother level. I tell people all the time, this is not my father's era of homelessness. This is a crisis of a generation. Why does housing matter so much? And for any Adventist health folks here, I love talking to the healthcare people on this. Housing is healthcare, and here is why. National Bureau of Economic Research paper, a study of studies. If you are unhoused, 3.5 times higher mortality rate. But this one always gets me. It takes 20 years off your life. So do that math for yourself right now. Add 20 years. 20 years gone from your life. This is life and death, like Dr. Woodson said. You are also so much more likely to use emergency resources. I was up in Truckee this last week talking to somebody at that hospital. So often, people end up in the emergency room. The cost and the strain on the system is massive. That can cost up to $350,000 if a couple of people get admitted for frostbite. It's very expensive. It's very taxing on resources. Not to mention the human impact of constantly using emergency care. The demographics of it. People oftentimes ask you, like, what does the average homeless person look like? One of our directors so beautifully describes this as an hourglass. There are different pathways into homelessness. When we get them at the shelter, they're sort of all here, and then there's different pathways out. But one thing we are definitely seeing, the aging population. And this is going to change everything about the discussion and the public about what success looks like around homelessness. Very different discussion to say, go get a job, right? It's going to be a different discussion with an aging population. So in California, already 25% of the unhoused folks are over 55. And again, it takes a lot off your life. And I'm just telling you, you come, and any of you are invited. You want to come to one of our shelters in Sacramento, or you want to come over to Reno, you can walk the shelter with us. And just by the eyeball test, it ages you, the health conditions that go with that. So this is going to be a crisis over the next 10 years. Already within VOA shelters, we are seeing 40% of our folks, 40 to 50%, who are 55 plus. At the Nevada Cares campus, we're hovering right around 50% that are 55 and up. Studies show that this is likely, very similar to the boomer population, is going to triple by 2030. We can go to the next slide. So a little bit about Volunteers of America. We were founded in the late 1800s by Maud and Ballington Booth. If that name is ringing a bell, William Booth, the father of Ballington, founded the Salvation Army. This was a spin-off from the Salvation Army. Throughout the years, what we have done changes, but there's always this focus on alleviating suffering and poverty. Right now, because again, this is the crisis of a generation, we are focused on moving people from homelessness to independence with dignity and love. And you're going to see this theme a lot today. How you do something matters as much as what you're doing. And as a church, I think we need to remember that. VOA is very special. We're a national organization, but we are divided into local affiliates with local boards of directors and local leadership. So this lets you kind of get ideas from the national group, but we can respond to an individual community's needs. And so our affiliate, based out of Sacramento, and I've got a couple of my colleagues here, is Northern California, Northern Nevada. So why does VOA exist? We can go to the next slide. We went through this exercise. We exist to create healthy and thriving communities for all. And y'all have been talking about this. Certain people seem to get left behind, and that's where entities like VOA need to step in. Now, Maud was an extraordinary lady. A lady ahead of her time. It is so interesting to me that when you look at the second half of the 19th century, there were some extraordinary women leaders who stepped forward and helped drive the country forward. Sound familiar? Yeah. Maud was one of those. And so Maud started prison reform and prison ministry long before that was ever a thing. She would go to Sing Sing prison, these different prisons, because she saw value. She wrote a great book. It's called After Prison, What? And in the beginning of this book, she tells a story, which always gets my attention. She talked about the gold rush in Australia. There were these deserts. And nobody saw any value in these deserts. But below the desert was gold. And nobody believed that gold was there until the shepherds started coming back, showing everybody the gold. So then everybody rushes out to the desert. And that's what Maud saw in the prisons. That's what we need to see today. Gold. These are people of tremendous value. Other people may not see it, but they are of tremendous value. She saw potential in each one of these individuals. She saw value. Now, like many of us, if you've spent any time in this business, it's hard work. She questioned whether she was being effective. And then she got a letter from one of the prisoners. And he said this to her. He said, "You said you loved us. Nobody ever said that to me before, and I hardly even know what the word means. I have never had a home." That was 100 years ago. We hear that today so much with the homeless, with the unhoused population. They may never know what it means to have been loved. When you look at the background of many of these individuals, it is humbling. It is humbling. And I have never had a home. Same. So many of the people we serve do not know what it means to have a home. And there is no greater joy, and I'll share a couple of these stories today, of watching somebody get into that apartment that locks behind them for the first time, a place to call home. Next slide. Where do we serve? I won't spend a lot of time on this, but we're based predominantly in the greater Sacramento area, also mostly around the Reno area, but we kind of move along that I-80 corridor. And I just share this to give you a flavor of what is available in the regions. And we have so many great other nonprofit partners in the region. And one of the things that VOA is very particular about, we want to go in, and I love the Built for Zero video, we want to go into communities where we can work alongside as partners. You know, I learned this with Adventist Health International. You go into these cities, and we're all trying to reinvent the wheel. We're all trying to do the same thing. It really requires partnership and collaboration. Next slide. The service continuum. Let me walk you through this for a second. So we build these continuums of care where you want to have somebody who's on street outreach, and I've gone with our teams. This is a superhuman skill set to go out onto the streets, to build rapport, to build trust, and start to help move somebody along in their housing journey. And then the emergency shelter services. And I'll get to this in a minute on kind of some of the places where the churches can help. Emergency shelter services are vital for both the safety, security of those individuals on this journey, stabilizing and getting them connected to resources, but they become the scapegoats of homelessness. And they become targets. And I always tell people, it's like blaming the emergency room for heart disease, right? It is just one piece of the continuum, and we forget, like Dr. Shook said this morning, and I'm going to keep reminding you about that great sermon this morning. If you didn't catch it, go back and listen. I listened on my drive over. A great sermon, Dr. Shook. Housing is the essential ingredient on the other side. Case management. This was that humbling moment when I was a volunteer. This is where it's messy. Case managers are superheroes, whether they're on outreach or they're sitting back in the office. They come up with that individualized plan, goals, working towards that housing, right? They're meeting people where they're at. But this, I mean, it's so fun. It's so easy for me when I go down to the shelter and I hand out the cup of coffee and I feel really good. But man, to get into a 1-hour conversation, to get into the messiness of life, but I think that's the Christian experience. Workforce development, mental health services, you heard that previously, and certainly VOA has a huge amount of affordable housing. You can move to that next slide. This guy is Rennie. Now, Rennie is truly one of my favorite people in the world. I used to bump into Rennie at the shelter, and he'd come up to me super friendly. He'd fist bump me, ask me if I'm having a good day. Rennie became homeless when he had a stroke. So Rennie had a stroke. He ends up at the shelter. But this guy, he's not fazed by that. He keeps going. And so then he joins our workforce development program. It's called Reno Works. And Reno Works does a number of things. You can learn life skills, job skills, OSHA training, all of these pieces. But it also involves manual labor working in the parks for the city of Reno. This guy, he's had a stroke, never missed a day of work. He showed up every single day. He graduates from that program. He gets into housing. And he agreed to come speak at one of our lived experience panels. And I remember before the meeting, he's like, Travis, I got to show you my new apartment. And the pride is he showed me pictures of this safe place that he can call his own. Rennie works for Rayleigh's, and I was in there 3 weeks ago, and this guy comes up to me and gives me a bear hug, and it was Rennie. What a special human. And I share that with you because I think sometimes it's hard when you're not in it to see people going through that full continuum. I've watched Rennie from the start of the journey until now, and it's certainly not over. But these are human beings. We talk about this a lot. The statistics matter a lot. You can't forget that people like Rennie are behind those statistics. We come from the business world, many of us, and we think about everything like input and output, like we're dealing with widgets. But these are human beings, and that journey can be messy, it can be zigzaggy, and so yes, we want the data, we want the goals, that is vital, but we gotta remember we're dealing with humans. One example of that, going back to that 2018 when I'm in that resource center, there was one lady, I'll call her Jane. I remember Jane coming in all the time. Usually she was nonverbal, severe psychosis, lots of psychiatric issues. And I watched her over the years decompensate on the streets of Reno. Very challenging to get her into care. 3 months ago, we got her into permanent supportive housing. She's on treatment. I saw her just last week, and she's verbal and she's talking. These are long journeys. And I'm going to keep hitting that spiritual theme. But Jesus, from Genesis to Revelation, it's Jesus chasing after us. We can't forget that. We can't give up. We can't give up on these individuals. Next slide, please. Okay, so how can NCC, what are some ideas? And I know in this whole Ending Homelessness initiative, you all have great ideas. But I talked to Joelle, and I wanted to just give a few thoughts on this. One is partnerships. There are so many great nonprofits out there, and finding the ones that you can partner with is great. And we do that as well. And I'll tell you, it's a hard business to be in. Even this year, VOA, as stable and as good as we are, we have about a 5 to 10% funding gap every single year that we have to go out and find unrestricted dollars for. That's a big fund, like $3 million every year that we have to go out and find. It's very challenging. So finding the right partnerships, and we try to do this in our communities, trying to find other entities that have the core competencies that we may not, and partnering alongside them. Advocacy. This might make you uncomfortable, but it is so vitally important. I can't tell you, and I'm looking at Melissa, my chief operating officer, there are days where you feel like you are getting kicked from the left and the right and every which way. We need allies. We need allies. Your voice matters. You cannot stay silent. If this is something that you believe in, step forward. Speak. This matters in every community. I was just talking to Stefan. I can't tell you how many emails or conversations I have with somebody who says, I'm very supportive of the work that you do, but the location where you're putting this just doesn't work for me. We need allies. 2 gentlemen got up to speak at one of those meetings. A shelter is going in next door to their luxury condo. And this gentleman brought me to tears. He said, thank you for putting this here. It belongs in our neighborhood. He spoke out when everybody else was running the other direction. I've never seen that. I've never, ever met a YIMBY, right? But you can speak out. All of us have a voice. Our churches have a voice on these issues. And then third, you can do these services yourselves. As churches, you have a lot of leeway. Dr. Shook gave some examples. There are church communities that are stepping forward. Some of your churches, I know your initiative is looking at the use of your land towards affordable housing. You can do some of these direct services. I think at moments our churches have gotten too risk averse. It is scary to provide direct services, but isn't that the call? Isn't that the call? Next slide. All right, we're going to get a little biblical now. So why us? Travis, we already got VOA, we got all these other nonprofits. Why Northern California Conference? There was a piece in the Atlantic magazine recently. More than 40 million people have stopped going to church. This is the greatest shift in church attendance in the history of America. Jim Davis and Michael Graham, in their book, The Great De-Churching, put this very startlingly. More people have left our churches in the last 25 years than joined during the first 2 Great Awakenings and the Billy Graham Crusades combined. 16% of the adult U.S. population has just stopped going to church. A friend of mine called this the great falling asleep. Now, the reasons are complex, and you know many of these. Abuse, hurt, bigotry. But Graham and Davis point out that the bulk of these reasons are actually far simpler. Many people are simply tired, or they've lost connection with what the church is doing. Their busy lives make religion and church an afterthought. They've tried to get the church to fit into the American dream instead of the other way around. The Atlantic goes on, and it asks a really thoughtful question. What if the problem isn't that churches are asking too much of their members, but that they aren't asking nearly enough? And that's my question to you all. As I take off my VOA hat and speak to you as a fellow Seventh-day Adventist Christian, what if we are not asking nearly enough of ourselves? I don't know about you, there are times where I feel like I'm in the wilderness. A lot of my friends and family no longer attend church, but I am convinced that we are leaving that wilderness. And there's a great passage. You all know the story. Moses is coming through the wilderness. He has dealt with all the rebellion, all the issues along the way. And now the promised land is in sight. But God lets him know, you're not going to be going into the promised land. And in Deuteronomy 34:4, the Lord said to him, "This is the land of which I swore to give Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, I will give it to your descendants. I have caused you to see it with your eyes, but you shall not cross over there." And just before his death, Moses gives a blessing and a warning to the people. And Rashi, this French commentator, applies Rabbi Hillel's now famous words to Moses' sense of urgency. And I'm paraphrasing. If not me, then who? If not now, when? And so that's my call to you. If not us, why us? If not us, then who? And if not now, when? What are we waiting for? What are you waiting for? We have a vital message to share, and even more importantly, a message to live. I love that theological basis to start this. It's in Scripture. We can go to the next slide. Matthew chapter 25, and this made it into the children's story today. So then the king will say to those on his right, verse 34, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the creation of the world. For I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me a drink. I was a stranger and you invited me into your home. I was naked and you gave me clothing. I was sick and you cared for me. I was in prison and you visited me." And the righteous ones are confused. They're saying, when did we do any of these things for you, Jesus? And then in verse 40, the king will say, "I tell you the truth. When you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you were doing it to me." But to those who are lost, the king points out their inaction in the same situations. And in verse 44, then they will reply, "Lord, when did we ever see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or naked or sick or in prison and not help you?" And he will answer, "I tell you the truth. When you refused to help the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you were refusing to help me." Notice, and I had missed this for so much of my life, notice that with those who were lost here, it's not something that they did wrong. It's what they didn't do. We spend so much of our time as people, as Christians, trying to avoid making mistakes. And we forget the Great Commission. We do a lot of talking. We spend a lot of time doing sin avoidance. But in our passage, we are told to let God's grace radiate from us in how we treat other people, even those we call the least of these. If you still don't believe me, next slide. In Christ Object Lessons, page 417, if you want to look it up, it says of this passage, "Practical work will have far more effect than mere sermonizing. We are to give food to the hungry, clothing to the naked, and shelter to the homeless." We have ignored so many scriptures. Isaiah 58, Dr. Shook brought that up again this morning. We have ignored so many scriptures, so many passages. Back to the why we should do this in NCC. This is a blue ocean strategy to share God's love with other people. Now, we don't have time. I think Joelle's going to rein me in here. We can't do a full exegesis of this passage, but when you go back and look at this, look at three things for me. The first is it can be simple and practical. These are not big, grandiose actions. The second, these are uncalculating actions. So much of what we do is transactional. This is uncalculating. And finally, it is deeply personal. Jesus was a personal God. I was talking to one of our staff members with lived experience, and he shared with me out of the blue. He said, if Jesus were here right now, I have no doubt he would be down on 4th Street near the homeless shelter. Eye-opening. One of the coolest things about this passage is that these are just such simple actions. One of my heroes is a guy in my neighborhood. Every morning, he's wearing a tie-dye shirt, usually shorts, and he's picking up trash going through this neighborhood. But this is the part I love. Every time a car passes by, he turns, smiles, and he waves. It just sets you on the right course for your day. What if we adopted that mindset? I bumped into this guy at Costco, and I went up to him. I saw him, he's in his tie-dye shirt. I left all my stuff on the other side of the store. And I said, you are one of my favorite people. I still do not know this man's name, but he is on my top 10. My daughter and I handed him a card when we drove by last week. He gets it. If not me, then who? If not now, then when? We are told, and this was brought up a little bit by Pastor earlier, we're told in the ministry of healing. And there are a lot of theologians in the room, so you prove me wrong. But we are told that Jesus spent more of his time healing than he did preaching. Where do we spend our time as a church? We do a lot of talking. Jesus looked at what people needed. We tend to tell people what they need. To the hungry, to the hurting, and to the addicted, we hand them a book and we say, good luck and God bless. That's not enough. Jesus said to take care of their practical needs, and he modeled it in the way he acted. It is easier to be a telemarketer than it is to be a true disciple. Because being a disciple is messy. Getting into the weeds is messy. We can take care of the whole person, the spiritual and the physical. And I wonder if all of us in the church and out, if we shouldn't spend more of our time looking out for the practical needs of those in our orbit and beyond. John Ortberg tells a story about Emperor Julian. He was a vowed opponent of Christianity, and he was upset at his own pagan priests because the Christians were making him look bad. And he said, I think when the poor happened to be neglected and overlooked by the pagan priests, the Christians observed this and devoted themselves to benevolence. They support not only their poor, but ours as well. Everyone can see that our people lack aid from us. The early Christian church was so radical in its acts of service that it made the government look bad. What if that was still the case now? This type of assistance that Jesus was talking about was uncalculating. So many of the nice things I do, I'm not going to say it for you, but a lot of the nice things I do is to get the thank you, to get the recognition. All of the buildings with the names plastered, we are very transactional as humans, but that's different here. Verse 44 again, then they will reply, Lord, when did we ever see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or naked or sick or in prison and not help you? It sounds to me like these folks were saying, if only we'd known it was a VIP, then we would have helped. You forgot to tell us who you were. You didn't have your VIP pass on, Jesus. We thought that it was someone less than. We thought that it was someone who couldn't reward us with power and riches. And lastly, Jesus was deeply personal. Right after Jesus preached the greatest sermon of all time, Sermon on the Mount, he provided an amazing example. He goes down and he gets back to work. Matthew chapter 8. When he came down from the mountain, great multitudes followed him. And behold, a leper came and worshiped him, saying, Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean. And then Jesus put his hand on him and touched him, saying, I am willing, be cleansed. And immediately the leprosy was cleansed. Jesus touched him. He could have done this from afar. He could have done this from the top of the mount. He touched him. Leprosy in Jesus' day was the worst possible thing. Rabbis would brag about never coming into contact with somebody who had leprosy. This was a radical act. Jesus touched him. I'll leave you with one more story. A man named John moved to Reno. He was living in one of those old motels. You probably have them in most of these cities. And suddenly he loses his job. He's falling behind on his rent. They cut off the internet to his room, and he gets evicted out of the motel. So John goes down to one of the church organizations, and he asks them if he can use a phone, and they're like, no, not here. Can you move along? So he comes into the Volunteers of America. One of the volunteers overhears what he's asking for, and they let him use his phone. All he wanted to do was to call his son, let him know that he was okay, make sure that they could stay in contact. John got connected to services. We got him into our workforce housing, and then ultimately he moved into some of our affordable senior housing. But he spoke at one of our events, and I'll never forget what he said about this story. He said, some people talk the talk, they don't walk the walk. These people who helped me talk the talk, but they walk the walk, and they don't really talk, they just walk. They're going to hold your hand and not let you go. And that's what I see with Jesus. He holds your hand. He reached out and he touched the leper, and he walks beside us. So now it's your turn. And I'm going to ask a lot of you. Those in those passages were lost not because of something that they had done wrong, but because of what they didn't do. Be bold. Today is the day, if not now, when? I'll leave you with one quote from Maud Booth that I think will resonate with you. Looking out over the great field, notwithstanding the difficulties that still confront us, there is one word that shines out supreme: hope. At first it was flashed to us from above, because of our faith in the divine. And now it flashes up from below as we catch the gleam of the grain of gold and the many human souls still in the shadow. So we can go forward with hearts strong to endure, brave to suffer, and warm to sympathize. For we know beyond doubt or fear that in the last great day of reckoning, we shall find that the toil has paid in that coin which is current in the world beyond. If not us, then who? If not now, when? Too much? Oh, good.
Travis, I have to follow that. I am not going to do it justice, I promise. But thank you so much for speaking and sharing your heart with us and inspiring and giving me new passion for the work that God has called me into. So thank you. I will be rewatching this on the replay and being inspired on a daily basis. And again, I apologize that I am not going to be nearly as inspirational as Travis, but what I am going to attempt to share with you this afternoon is some of the actual work. We have been doing the when collectively in our spaces, and I'm really thrilled to be a part of all those different task force groups that we have. So in many instances, the now has come. For six of our counties in Northern California, the now has come, and we're starting to do that work. So if we could go ahead and advance the slide, we'll talk about what some of that work is that we're doing. For any of you who were at the midterm constituency, I apologize that a lot of this will be information you've already heard, so we'll try to go through it quickly and make up a little bit of time in our day this afternoon. A task force is basically one or two members from each church or school congregation coming together so that we can work within that county as an Adventist entity to help address homelessness. We meet monthly. We typically will elect a leader in that group. We ask someone from that group to attend the local continuum of care meetings and report back to our space. And then we also start trying to work collaboratively and form partnerships with the local entities that are already addressing homelessness within that particular county. I am blessed to be able to come in and provide oversight into those spaces. And hopefully by the end of 2027, we will establish 15 task force units within our conference. Currently, we have 7 counties and doing 6 task force. So we have 5 more that'll be on the docket this next year, and then 5 more the year after that. If you wouldn't mind advancing the slide, thank you. Our first task force that we began was Placer County, and we started that in last summer of 2024. And then just recently, we've decided to add in the Nevada County. As we started working throughout this initiative and realizing the collection or the collaboration already between Placer and Nevada counties in their continuum of care spaces, it made sense that we would bring those 2 counties together under our purview. So the involvement from churches that we have in that space, as you can see on the slide, we have Auburn, which I know is represented here today. Thank you guys for coming. We have Grace Point Church. We have the Sacramento Yugoslavian with Pastor Sasha. We have our Roseville SDA Church. We've had a couple members from there just join us recently. And we also have our Grass Valley and Penn Valley churches that are participating in our task force group. And so far, we have created some partnerships that have led to very meaningful ways in which this initiative is being played out. And one of those first ones is the Placer People of Faith Together. And that is actually how we came in contact with Dr. Jill Shook at a conference that both Mark and I attended last year on housing. And so we've been blessed to have that partnership. They have shared with us. They're helping us grow and help us navigate this initiative as we move forward. We also obviously have a partnership with the Volunteers of America, and we will continue to have ongoing discussions. We're grateful for many of their representation here today. And we've also been working with an organization called Victory Village, which is specifically focused on addressing veteran housing within Placer County. As you can see there on the screen, I don't need to read through everything in that space, but I think a couple of the highlights that I want to talk about for our Placer and Nevada counties is that we are really looking at what does putting some affordable housing look like in Placer County, and we are actively participating in point-in-time counts as well as their continuum of care meetings. We can go to the next slide, please. Mendocino County started about 6 months later, and we've also made some pretty significant progress in that aspect, and I'm really grateful for Jeremy Malin being here today, who's been a part of that task force, and he represents for us the Adventist Health Ukiah Valley space over there. So this is the only task force that we currently have that has both a collection of our Adventist churches, schools, and Adventist healthcare all present at the same table. So we're super grateful for the way that that's been able to work out. We meet monthly collectively in that space as well, and you can see the different churches and schools and healthcare that's present in the Mendocino County. We have a couple of partnerships that are starting to develop over there, one with an organization called Healthy Mendocino, and then most recently, Jeremy was able to get us involved with a development group called Rural Communities Housing Development Corporation. It's a mouthful, and we're starting to learn the acronym pretty well, but we've had a couple opportunities to meet with them. They've come in and presented, and then I've met with them offline a couple times. And we are also working on what does it look like to put some affordable housing in some of the spaces over in Mendocino County. So we're excited about those possibilities and what God is doing. As you can see, we also attend the Continuum of Care meetings over there, and we will be participating in the point in time count for 2026. Next slide, please. Thank you. Contra Costa County, that's where we are currently. We began the work here in January of 2025, and the focus in this county is currently on veterans. You can see all the churches listed there, and we are so grateful that most recently we've had our Concord SDA Church join us with having the presence of Scott Groeschel start attending our meetings, and we're working towards investigating low housing because we have an opportunity that we've been presented with as another connection through our People of Placer Faith Together. We came across an organization called LISC, and they are active in 6 counties around the Bay Area. And several of our churches have an opportunity to participate with this organization in their faith and housing division and find out and talk about what does it look like to transition extra space that they have into affordable housing. So we're going to be moving through that series of classes together collectively in several of these churches here in Contra Costa County, as well as a church in Solano County. So we're really looking forward to what we're all going to be learning together there. And then we will also be addressing the point in time count for 2026. Next slide, please. You probably can start to see a bit of repetition in many of these spaces. As we've continued to meet, there's some pretty similar goals that we all try to keep working on. First one is obviously attending the continuum of care, and then one of the most impactful ways we can get involved is helping with the point in time count, because that gets us out on the streets in touch with the organizations that are already addressing homelessness. So you'll see that as we continue to move throughout our initiative, more things will start to develop, but these are some of the initial ways in which we're trying to work. So in our Marin and Sonoma counties, you will see all the churches that are represented there, and I'm super grateful that Pastor Brad is here today representing around the Santa Rosa Church, and he'll be on our panel discussion. We've been meeting collectively there since about April of this last year, and we're starting to make some progress towards working with some organizations. COTS in particular, they are the communities, I just blanked on what their acronym means. COTS is one of the organizations there that we are working with and getting some of our students into their spaces and volunteering, so that's been a great partnership there, as well as we've toured another facility in the area called the Caritas Center. They're a transitional space housing as well as some emergency shelter. And we will also be participating in the point in time count for 2026. And then most recently, we started our Sacramento County Task Force back in September this year. We've met twice together. We have representation currently from our Orangevale Church, Sacramento Central, Sacramento Fijian, Carmichael, and Capital City. Because we are still in the infancy in how long we've been meeting together, we haven't been able to form partnerships yet, but we'll be working towards that goal. And so really in the genesis stages of what it looks like to meet together collectively. But I'm grateful for Sarah's presence in that space, and she comes and joins us on our Council of Homelessness as well, so it's nice to have double duty there. We will be attending the monthly continuum of care meetings, as well as participating in the point in time count. So as you can probably see, the longer a task force meets, the more progress we're making, the more connections we're making, the more partnerships we're able to form, and the more conversations we'll be able to have, the more work that's being done, the more now that's actually happening. I did touch briefly about the organization called LISC, and their Faith and Housing Division provides faith-based organizations around the San Francisco Bay Area with skills and knowledge to explore the feasibility of affordable housing on their land. We are going to be working with that developer, with that organization for this next year of 2026, and what that looks like and how we can potentially network that through the rest of our spaces, since not all of the counties in California have access to that organization. But we're grateful for that opportunity that has come out of many of these different task forces actually kind of dovetailing together with how we've been working. I tried to make it really fast so we could make up a little bit of time, and so now we're actually going to transition to our panel discussion. So as we are transitioning, there's going to be some chairs brought up, and we're going to have the people that are working, who'll be answering the questions for our panel come up. And after that, we are then going to transition downstairs, where we're going to be playing our game that Dr. Jill Shook is here going to moderate for us. Looking forward to it. Mark and I had the opportunity to play this game about a year ago. I know I learned a lot in the process, and I was my eyes started to be open and changed. My heart was affected. So we look forward to that, and then we'll be closing with our question and answer period as well. So thank you so much for being here with us. Please give us a little bit of time to transition as we get some chairs up here on the stage for our panel discussion.
Does he help?
Of individuals. How you doing, Pam? Good to have this group here with us, and they are representatives of a number of the EHITs. We like to call them EHITs. That's our Ending Homelessness Initiative Task Force groups, and we affectionately call them EHIT. And so you can see, I think, on the screen the panelists, but I'm going to have them each share their name. And as they're doing that, the first question for you all, and we'll just go down right in order, and we'll start down here with our host pastor. It's basically, tell us who you are, and then why did you get involved with the task force? And your answer, if you're a pastor up here, the answer cannot be because the president asked me to. Okay, so that's the first thing. That's the caveat. All right, but really seriously, why did you give us your name? Why did you get involved? Come on up. Why did you get involved?
So my name is Josie Asensio. I'm the lead pastor here at the Antioch Church. So just a little bit of our family story. After getting involved in multiple churches, it's normal for me to go to community meetings. And getting involved in this, I started actually talking with my mom about it. And she told me stories about going to a shelter when I was just an infant, and my sister was a toddler. And I was just Jill Shook, who's going to be leading out our game, spoke at our church today, and she reminded me that I'm benefiting from affordable housing. My mom was a single mom working 2 and 3 jobs. I was just talking to Pastor Furness about one of my pastors when I was in kindergarten. And every year we would go to Mexico. Every month we would go to Mexico. It was just very mission driven. As little kids, we would be putting flyers about events that we were having at our church. He always sent the children because the cops would stop us and say, "Do you have a permit for this? And what are you going to do? Give a ticket to a kid? We're so cute." And so it's just, it has really been ingrained in me both at church and from my own life experiences. And at my couple churches ago, being involved in the community is what saved a lot of our church members whose houses burnt down. And I remember saying at that church, we need to make sure that we're a church that if our church burns down, the community says you can't leave, we want to help you rebuild. And then our community burned, and they helped my members whose houses burnt because I didn't do anything, I just showed up. And they were like, "Oh, we know your pastor here, let's get them this service, let's get them that service." And the opposite happened, they helped us. So I really am passionate about it. My dad shared with me moments about when he was homeless, and he was a teenager, and watching people eat McDonald's burgers, wishing that someone would give him one too. So yeah, it's deeply personal.
Thank you.
I'm Brad Ginger. I am a pastor in Santa Rosa. And I think for me, I grew up in a church where one of our key leaders and one of our key praise leaders, Gary, he joined our congregation while he was homeless, but was also very visible and a leader in our church through the whole process. And I think really kind of built a culture of, like, I loved what Travis said about Rennie, where, when you have a name and a face and a person and you're on that journey with them, I think that was really transformative for our community, and I'm very blessed now to be the lead pastor of that same church that I grew up in, and I got to work with Gary firsthand and for many years, and so I think just really it's just a deeply personal thing for me and our whole community.
Good.
I'm Jeremy Malin. I'm a member of the Rio Lindo Adventist Academy Church, and I'm a family nurse practitioner out of Adventist Health Ukiah Valley in Mendocino County, and also the director of community health. That's a complicated explanation for what that means, but it means I wear a variety of hats and get to work in spaces like this. And one of those spaces is that I get to work on our street medicine team that Adventist Health runs out of in Ukiah and across Mendocino County. And that was actually the avenue that I joined the Mendocino County EHIT task force. So why do I do this? I'm an East Coast transplant. I spent, before moving to California about 4 years ago, I spent 10 years at a federally qualified community health center, working with both refugees and people experiencing homelessness, providing a lot of health care in shelters, particularly 2020, 2021. And when I came to work for Adventist Health, I wanted to continue that work because I think that it is providing health care to people who don't have the ability to come into clinics is a major way that we can live, or that I can live, my Christian beliefs.
Thank you. All right, let's come to this side.
I'm Haddad, and this is the easiest question. I'm in this because I have been involved over 20 years with community service at our church, and with the lovely team back there. And for 20 years, I've been blessed to be able to offer people a sleeping bag, a blanket, clean clothes, a sandwich, a shower, thanks to the conference, because we have a shower trailer. But what they need is housing. It would be so much better if they took a shower at their own place where they were staying. And so the name of this group is Ending Homelessness, and that's why I'm in it. I want to see these people in-housed.
I love it. Very good.
My name is Sasha Angelkovic, and I'm a pastor of West Sacramento and Sacramento Yugoslavian churches. Well, when I heard about the initiative, I thought that it's interesting. West Sacramento church that I pastor has been feeding homeless downtown Sacramento for the last 10 years, regularly, every Sunday. They cook warm meals and they're being delivered to people. You know, we know by now everyone, and everyone knows us, and that's a wonderful ministry. But I realized that we are scratching the surface. So when I heard about this bold initiative, I knew I wanted to learn about that, and I wanted to support it. It was practical, tangible, and I also wanted to learn about it because I realized that I don't understand enough the complexity of it, and the more I'm learning about it, the more complex it looks like. And not just the issue, but how to do it in a networking, but I'm learning that there is a way and there is help out there, and it really takes everyone coming together and partnering and blessing people around us. Yeah, so, and I'm glad to be part of this.
Good.
Hello, I'm Sarah Guerra, and I'm from Sacramento Central, Seventh-day Adventist, and I help out for community service over there. And I experienced homelessness myself. I had my trials, and God opened up a door for me and allowed me to be able to share my testimonies and be able to help others come closer to God. And so this is like a door opening for me to, venture and help others.
All right. Well, thank you for introducing yourself. I want to just first of all thank each and every one of you for the work that you're doing, because we've got a good mixture of both those who are pastors as well as those who are regular church members of our church. And so I want to thank you all for taking this on. Now, one of the promises I did make with Sister Pam is I wouldn't give her any hard questions. So, Pam, I'm going to make sure I don't give you any hard questions. But this question, it can be for any of you that would like to open up with this. What have you learned since being on the task force? And not only what have you learned, but if you can answer also, what does homelessness look like? Because we do know that it can look different in different areas, which is one of the reasons why the strategy has been to have a task force group in different areas, not just one big task force, because this conference is very diverse. So give us a little bit about what you may have learned, and what does the problem look like or the challenge look like from your perspective in your area?
Well, I'll answer the second one first. For us, I'm finding that homelessness doesn't always look like homelessness. Like we have people that are living in their cars, but they have gym memberships. So they go to the gym, they shower there and use the gym more as a place to continue to look clean. We had someone in our community that had been even coming to church, and for 3-4 months she had been living in her car. Our community has a safe park area where people who are living in their car can park safely. There are also several children that are experiencing homelessness. Our county also does shuffle a group of about 18 families. Their youngest member of that community that churches open their doors for is called Winter Nights. Their youngest one, I think, is 6 months old. They do have one disabled little boy. And then they have, their oldest is, I think, in their 60s. So it is a wide range. There are families. One of the things that I've learned and I've kind of had to slow down from is you can't do anything without relationships, and I'm a doer. And sometimes you just need to sit and show up and be consistent. Because just like church, you need permission to lead people. And nobody cares what you know if you're coming from another county, if you've been doing this kind of work for years. They care if you know their name. And then they will give you permission. So I'm still waiting for permission. The only thing I got permission to do was a slideshow. And I'm going to take that very seriously, you know. But a lot of it is just waiting, showing up, and the ministry of presence.
I like what you said there about, you know, homelessness looks not only different, but you can't always tell that a person is experiencing homelessness. One of the questions maybe I'll ask you all later, as you can start preparing for your mind, is what is one of the myths that you'd like to dispel from having, you know, and that may be one of them, one of the myths. So think about that question as well. But anybody else, what does it look like in your area? Yeah, Jeremy.
So looking at the list of panelists here, and being from Mendocino County, which is a particularly rural county, homelessness can also, between different counties, rural, urban, suburban, look very different as well. Rural communities like Mendocino County, Lake County, Humboldt County have some of the highest rates per capita of homelessness of anywhere in the country. And it's not as visible because everything is so spread out. Also in those communities, regularly we see a much higher rate of people who are homeless from that community, where in Mendocino County, 85% of the people who are homeless lived stably in Mendocino County before they became homeless, which is a little bit different than what we see in urban settings as well. And so during my time working with people experiencing homelessness, it's been, and coming from an urban setting on the East Coast where there was a lot of shelter beds that were available in Mendocino County for over 800 people who are homeless, over half of which are unsheltered. We have 75 shelter beds in the entire county. And so that gap is huge in our county. So the need for permanent housing in Mendocino County is huge, but the population is small. So I think that's one of the things that I've learned a lot about, is just seeing what homelessness looks like in one county, in one city, in one town is not necessarily what it is like anywhere else.
Right, good, yeah. What else? Yeah, Pam.
I just want to address the part about learning.
Yeah.
And Joelle gives me books or directs me to books, and I had always kind of thought that, you're homeless because an action that you kind of failed at, and has resorted to you. And so the books particularly have really opened my eyes to the systemic problems, and I didn't realize how bad Placer County's lack of affordable housing was until I got involved with the task force.
Wow, very good. Very good. Yeah.
Well, one thing that I learned amongst many others, we've heard about mail, how important it is just to have an address where you can receive a mail, or even to charge your phone, to send an email, to have Wi-Fi access. Homeless people are normally, they have a schedule, and they know where they go first thing in the morning to, say, use the restroom. And where they can go to maybe take a shower or eat a warm meal, then they'll go to the library to charge their phones, and their lives are complex. It's not like, oh, I can be in one place. If you want to have the minimum, right, that will allow you to survive. But one thing that especially touched my heart is that when they end up in the hospital, and as we know, you're not going to stay in the hospital till you get really, really well. You're going to stay there a minimum amount of time, and then they're going to release you. So where do you go when you're still sick? And they have nowhere to go. There's no home. There's nothing that a system will provide. And some places have centers that will receive homeless people and help them recover until they're ready to go and be even in the shelter or anywhere where they can go. So just providing a ministry for them when they leave the hospital, a safe space where they can recover is a huge, huge thing.
Yeah. Sarah, you before you joined the task force in Sacramento, and before even you joined on our Council on Homelessness, you were involved in the ministry at Sac Central. But one of the other things, though, that you have shared with us is that you are a person of lived experience. You shared that with us. Talk to me a little bit about what you have learned by the ministry that you've been a part of, and then what should we know that would have been most helpful to you having experienced homelessness?
I honestly believe that homelessness is in the beholder of the eyes. Talking with other homeless people, we always have a different experience, a different story to tell. A lot of us, some of us don't consider living without a house homeless. It's our home. Like you guys offer shelters and stuff like that, for us homeless people, we consider that a place of refuge more than just a shelter, because there's so many blessings in it, spiritual blessings, the kindness, the joy, the feeling humane again, that we do have a life, that we can live, with around other people and not be lonely. That's how I see it.
Good. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Pastor Brad, I remember when we were forming the task force group and the number of people that came together, and it was actually kind of hard to find even a leader that would take that on. What have been some of the challenges that you have seen so far? You guys haven't really been meeting that long, but what would you say some of the challenges are?
How do we as churches relate to this? What does this mean for ministries we have and don't have? And so I think we've taken quite a bit of time to just sort of start negotiating. All right, what is this? And I think that's been fruitful. And I think the spirit of seeking partnerships, which is certainly not. I wouldn't say our Adventist heritage. We like to start our own things. And so I think just having an openness to, hey, we can do things that don't have our name on it. We can invest where there is no quid pro quo, have all been really important and valuable things to bring into this.
Good. Any of you can answer this, and we've been talking a lot about using the word COC, which stands for the Continuum of Care. How has that been going? Anyone can talk to that, working with the COC?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
So I attend our Continuum of Care meetings for our task force, and it was really hard. Like the first couple ones were really hard. All I really did was take notes about the acronyms. They use so many acronyms. And I literally was like, maybe I should like write down all these acronyms and what they mean and give them to our task force people, because like otherwise it's a completely different language. I'm learning about the distribution of HUD funding. There's some funding, a grant that wasn't received in our county by one of our main youth nonprofit ministries, and everybody was like, "Oh man, it felt kind of churchy, like, oh, we're praying for you." And so I came up to some of the leadership and I was like, "Listen, you guys just got $1 million, and they have nothing. Why are you keeping your $1 million and just patting them over the like?" I was upset. And I quickly got schooled on how funding is. You need your checks and balances, and when you receive funding, it is very specific. In the same way that we give our money to the church and we say, hey, I want this to go to the school and worthy students, and I want this to go to buildings. Things, Thank you for that, because it's the end of the day and I forgot the word. All that funding is restricted and for that particular ministry, and so they can't. Their hands are literally tied. So it's still a different culture. It's still a different language. I'm still learning how to maneuver the language and understand the funding. But yeah, it's just a whole new level. And all the acronyms. There's a lot of acronyms.
Yeah. Jeremy, if I'm not mistaken, you are on the COC, right? You're a member of the COC for Mendocino?
Yes.
Would that be right? So I'm going to put you on the spot here. Tell us, what is the purpose of COC? What is that? What is their work to do?
So COCs are a structure that's actually mandated by the federal government through the Department of Housing and Urban Development. I'm sure there's other people in the room that actually can explain this better than I can. But so every part of the country fits in a COC. And what COCs look like across the country also is variable depending on the burden of homelessness in that community. Also, the amount of funds that they receive is also distributed to some degree based on need and based on the projects that are being proposed to HUD for the specific different funding programs that are funded by the federal government. So the COC provides a ongoing organization that the different stakeholders that are in the housing services space can come together, work together, and hopefully have improved outcomes because of that ongoing work together. Adventist Health in Mendocino County, we hold one of the seats permanently, so that's how I attend. Okay. And me or someone else on my team. So depending on the month, I actually am going to say something that isn't directly answering your question, just because it's exceptionally timely. Okay. 2 days ago, what the funding looks like for the continuums of care across the country, that was just announced and put out there, and they have a very relatively short timeline. 6-7 weeks to put together their proposals And there is going to be major changes in what funding looks like, especially for that permanent supportive housing. And it's actually outlined specifically it's talking about acronyms. It's the HUD COC NOFO, Notice of Opportunity for, sorry, I got that wrong. Notice of Funding Opportunity. There we go. And
NOFO, right? I always say that. NOFO.
It's specifically outlined in the NOFO that there's priorities for partnering with faith-based organizations. This is our time to step up.
Good opportunity. Good opportunity. We just have a few more minutes because we're trying to catch up here, but I know Pam and Sasha, both of you have attended a COC. What was your experience? What would you say what was your experience like?
You go first.
Well, I just attended one on Wednesday. And first thing that I would say, they welcomed me so nicely. Previously, I attended online. This was my first in-person meeting, and they were so happy to see me there. And when I told them that I, represent, our conference in Placer County and what we're trying to do, they were really genuinely happy. And the good thing is, as you have mentioned, there's professionals there, in the field from different agencies. And when I say professionals, not clerks, but executives. And you get to know them over the time. Like, I've learned that there is about $3.7 million in Roseville available for those who want to venture into developing low-income housing, right? And you get to know those people, and they tell you this is how you apply. And I'm sure every county has something like that. They can help us. They can teach us how to do it, how to apply, right? You sit with them, you get to know them, and they're really nice, normal people. They're not executives that are behind, the glass door.
At least the ones in Placer County are.
Yes, no. I really felt welcomed, and I'm like, okay, this can really help us, and they're hoping that we can help them, of course.
That's true, right?
So that's my experience.
Yeah, I think you hit up on a good point there, because we talk about the value of attending these meetings. It's one of the first things we talk about when someone is on a task force. We say, one of the things we want you to do is regularly attend this. And you pointed out, I think, two good reasons for that. One is when you saw a lot of us talking about partnerships. That's where you can form partnerships.
Yes.
Is at those COCs with those individuals who are working on the same things that you're working on. And the other thing is, it's so informative. You learn so much about what's going on. Pam, was that kind of your experience?
Yes. The only thing for me is that, I'm sun up, sundown Monday.
Yeah.
Community service. Sun up, sundown Tuesday, community service. Why do they have to have it Wednesday morning? Otherwise, but yes, I can totally see the value in going. I learned a lot, had a problem with acronyms, like she said.
And by the way, just for those of you who are interested too, when you go to one of these COCs, I hope this is true for yours. I know it's been true for two of them that I've attended, that there is a section for public comment. And you can speak to an issue. That's a good time for, as Travis was talking earlier about advocacy. I know one of the first ones I attended in Placer County, I had a question about what they're doing with with the money that they have received for Build for Zero. And they said, oh, good question. No one's ever asked us that. We'll have a report the next meeting. So things like that, it's helpful to be able to talk. We're running out of time, and so maybe one last question for you would be, what do you hope for the COC, what do you hope for the task forces that you're sitting on? What do you really hope to accomplish with this? Maybe some specific things that can be grandiose. What do you really hope as you're getting involved and as you're moving forward? You've been meeting some for months now. What do you really want to see your group become?
Again, the reason that I'm doing it is because of producing housing, and I just want to add a little thing in there that Housing makes such a difference. I particularly speak of one lady. She hardly interacted. She looked like a homeless person. I really thought she had severe psychiatric issues. And she was able to get into senior housing, and now she just comes on Tuesdays to get groceries. She's a bubbly personality.
Change, yeah.
You know, her whole looks, her whole demeanor, it's been huge. So I'm looking forward to our task force resulting in actual housing.
Excellent. Good.
Yeah, I would just say postured for timely response. I know our church runs a food pantry, and we were able to essentially triple our offerings during some of the SNAP benefit cuts in our area. We had 43,000 residents who lost benefits, and we opened our food pantry and like 3 extra times and had almost a 50% increase, almost entirely all new first-time visitors to our food pantry. And so I think just, continuing to develop in all of these different opportunities and partnerships will give us, a greater opportunity for a timely response as it seems world-changing events just continue to happen with greater, at a greater rate. I mean, it'd be cool if we had some kind of predictions about that or something like that we cared about as Adventists.
Good. All right.
I want to go out on street medicine, walk down along the river to where we're going to an encampment, and no one be there.
Awesome.
On a personal level, I would love the culture of my church to be service first. For our task force in particular, we've been working all year towards seeing how we can support, and I have to give Pastor Damon and his church, Elder Yehoida, who's on our task force as well, who is here. They are really setting the example for trying to create a space on their particular church grounds where we can build affordable housing. I'd like to see that project come through. I'd like for them to show our whole conference and our whole task force, like all of the churches on our task force, what it looks like. So I'd love to see Contra Costa be the first task force that actually does have a project of affordable housing.
Awesome. Any last words? Yeah, Sarah?
So I hope that also I agree with Josie, that our church is more involved in. But I think the number one thing that I really do hope is to be able to reach a lot more people, homeless people, the community, and be able to bring them closer to God. That's my number one hope.
Well, we'll make that the last word. I want to thank all of our panelists, and not only for being on the panel, but for the work that you're doing on your task force. I'm going to ask Joel come up and talk to us about the transition that we're going to make, and I'll just make another commercial. You don't want to miss what's going to happen next, for sure.
I am going to invite Dr. Jill Shook to come up now. For some of you that were here this morning, we were blessed to be able to hear her presentation on biblical land usage. Josie did an amazing job introing her this morning, and I apologize, but I cannot remember the extensive list of why she is qualified to teach us today. But this afternoon, what we're going to do for our last piece before we have our refreshments at the end, we are going to gather together and play the unjust housing game. Like I said, Mark and I had the opportunity to play this game at a conference we went to about a year ago. And it was so pivotal. When we started planning this event, Mark said, we got to play that game. So how can we get in touch with Dr. Jill Shook? And which we have. And so we're blessed to have her here. And she'll tell us more about the game now. And then we will invite you downstairs where we'll actually play.
The table is set. We have all kinds of tables downstairs ready for you. There's 6 players on each table, and I'm very excited for you to experience this game.
We have been, it was developed in 2017. I was asked to put together a course on housing justice and community organizing for Azusa Pacific University and their master's social work. And I wanted to figure out a way to make the history of housing policy engaging and fun and interesting. And so we came up with this game. And in my book, and there are some copies available in the back, chapter 2 talks about a lot of what we're going to learn in this game. It talks about the nature of the housing crisis and what caused it. And so what we often don't think about is that this housing crisis has a lot to do with people of color and racism. And we often see those on the street that are people of color. And that is by design. That is not an accident. And there are specific policies that have been passed that have and very intentionally excluded. And so as you play this game, it's actually really a lot of fun, but you're going to learn a lot about some of those policies and specifically how they've affected each of our lives. And so it works like this. You're going to, if you get the black pawn, then you get $100. If you fake money, of course, and if you're a white pawn, you get 1,000, because that's the actual disparity, 1 to 10. And so you're immediately confronted with that. There's a banker, and the banker, every time you roll a dice, if it has 6, you get $600. If it has 1, you get $100. And then you pull cards, and those cards allow you to read a little brief snippet of a policy and an actual person affected by that policy. And so it's going to help all of you task folks to understand how people often ended up on the streets. I'm going to close, and then hopefully we can quickly all go downstairs and get started right away. But I'm going to close with this final thought. When we were in Placer County, and I collected all the games, there were about, I think, 8 games that day. Groups. We have it set up today for about 9 games, but make sure you're in a group of about 4 or 6 at least. So there was missing a game. There was one gone, and I thought, well, where is it? So I got up on the mic like this, and I said, maybe that somebody accidentally misplaced it. If you could bring it up, I'd like to get that game back. And somebody came up to me, a person of color, and she was holding this game. And she says, "Oh, I've sinned." She says, "I took it." And I go, "Why'd you take it?" She goes, "Because I work with at-risk kids. And these kids that are in gangs, if they could understand, it's not their fault. It's not their fault." So I think that's what you're going to get. That's why I don't want you to miss it. Thanks for the extra time today. It means a lot. Thanks.
So in order for us to go downstairs, what you will need to do is you can go out this door here. There are some stairs. You can go down the stairs for those of you who need an elevator. You may take the elevator. I see Clarence, if I can just have you raise your hand really quick. You can follow him. Earl and Oleg, if you guys can raise your hand, you can follow them as well. And they will take you down. Thank you so much.